If you've ever wished you had an AI research assistant who could read 10 years of annual reports, pull out the exact answers you need, and organize everything into a beautiful knowledge base, meet Google LM Notebook. Today we're going to load 10 years of U.S. bank filings, annual reports, proxy statements, ESG reports, plus brand and historical data, and show how Google LM Notebook turns this mountain of information into insights. So what is Google LM Notebook? Think of it as a research workspace powered by Google's Gemini models. It combines the familiarity of Google Docs, the search power of Gmail, and the insight of your own private AI analyst. And it's free with additional paid options if you need more power. LM Notebook lets you upload large PDFs, CSVs, and other documents, and have the model read them all in context. You can create structured sections for different parts of your project, ask the AI to summarize complex material, compare documents across multiple years, or extract specific patterns and insights. It also supports long context reading, citations that link back to the original files, and even persistent memory, so your work grows smarter over time. Whether you're doing competitive intelligence, strategy analysis, ESG reviews, nonprofit research, or academic case studies, LM Notebook gives you a single place to organize everything, and lets AI handle the heavy lifting. Getting started with Google LM Notebook is easy. Just go to notebooklm.google and sign in with your Google account. If you already use Gmail, YouTube, or Google Drive, you're all set. The same login works here. Once you're in, you'll see the option to create a new LM Notebook. The free tier gives you full access to the Notebook interface and the standard Gemini models, and you can upgrade to the paid plan if you need more model power or longer context windows. That's it, no setup, no installation, and no configuration. Just sign in, start a new notebook, and you're ready to begin. Before we build our LM Notebook, we need the source documents. Since we're analyzing U.S. Bank in this example, we'll start by visiting their website to download the information we want to work with. Head over to U.S. Bank's Investor Relations page, where you'll find 10 years of annual reports, proxy statements, and ESG or corporate responsibility reports. Download the PDFs for the years you want to analyze. For this walkthrough, I'm grabbing everything for about the past 10 years. Now that we downloaded the PDFs we want to analyze, let's click Create a Notebook in Google LM Notebook. Now where it says Upload Sources, we can either drag and drop our files in the box or click on Choose File to upload them. Since I am uploading 40 files, it will take a few minutes. Google LM Notebook gave this notebook a name and an icon, but I want to change them. So I will click on them and rename the notebook and give it a new icon. Now let's add 2 more sources to our notebook. Google LM Notebook doesn't just work with PDFs, it also allows you to add links to websites. This is great when you want to give the AI additional context beyond a formal report.so. In this case, I'm going to add 2 links directly into the notebook. One to U.S. Bank's company history, and another to their mission and values page. By including these pages, the AI gains a deeper understanding of how the company positions itself, where it came from, and what it emphasizes publicly. All of this becomes part of the overall context that LM Notebook uses when analyzing the rest of your documents. And now we're ready for our analysis. We've collected 10 years of U.S. Bank reports, added key web sources, and organized everything into a structured LM Notebook. With the foundation in place, we can finally put Gemini to work, reading the documents, comparing trends, and pulling out the insights we need. Let's dive in. Let's do our first task. Summarize U.S. Bank's strategic priorities over the last 10 years based on the annual reports. Wow, this is incredibly comprehensive. And notice that all the numbers and statements include citations that link right back to the original source documents. So if you ever want to verify something or see exactly where the model pulled the information from, it's only one click away. I'm going to go ahead and save this note, so we can build on it as we continue our analysis. Something very cool about Google LM Notebook is that it can generate an audio overview, almost like a mini podcast, with 2 voices discussing the content of your notebook. It's a great way to review information hands-free or share insights with your team. Since we're continuing our research on the question, summarize U.S. banks' strategic priorities over the last 10 years, I'm going to customize the audio. All I need to do is click the pencil icon on the audio overview button and type in our research question. That tells Google LM Notebook exactly what to focus on when generating the discussion. Once that's set, it will create a two-voice audio summary that walks through the findings just like a professional podcast. Great! It took a little over 10 minutes to generate, but that's okay. This feature is doing a lot behind the scenes. Now let's take a short listen to what it created.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in to examine a fascinating decade in American finance. We're going to be summarizing the strategic priorities of U.S. Bank between 2014 and 2024.
Yep.
Our mission here is to really distill the core strategies, what they chose to focus on, where they invested their money, and how they transformed, especially as they move from this, super rigorous regulatory environment toward these massive sustainability and community goals.
It's an extraordinary 10-year period. I mean, for any major financial institution, when you look at the whole span, the central tension is it's palpable.
How so?
Well, you have banks coming out of the post-2008 era, and they have this relentless mandate for financial stability, for rigorous risk management. They had to be defensively perfect.
Right.
But at the same time, the world didn't stop. They had to adapt to these revolutionary tech shifts and, frankly, soaring societal demands for environmental and social responsibility.
It's a pivot.
It's a massive pivot from internal defense to this proactive external strategy. That's what we're tracking.
Okay, let's unpack this starting point then. We really have to begin with, say, 2014 through 2016, because this was not a time for bold, aggressive growth. This was about
regulatory hardening.
Exactly. Regulatory hardening and internal risk control. It was about proving you were fit to operate.
Precisely. And this wasn't just window dressing for the regulators. This is about rewriting the incentives that guide daily decision-making. By 2014, the governance structure was heavily formalized.
So you mean like committees and things?
Yeah, committees like audit, risk management, community reinvestment, they were central. And critically, they all had the direct authority to go out and hire outside experts to help them.
So they needed external validation.
They needed external validation of their control structures. It removes that internal bias.
It sounds like the system was designed to do that.
Yeah.
But connecting it back to the individual employee, linking compensation directly to risk, that's where the rubber meets the road, isn't it?
That's the key.
How did they stop people from just chasing immediate profit and, gaming the system all over again?
That's the core structural change. The Incentive Review Committee mandated that most business line incentive plans, anything with a credit component, had to track early defaults.
Early defaults, so loans that go bad quickly.
Exactly. We're talking about loans that defaulted within the first 12 months. If you originated bad loans, your compensation was directly and immediately impacted.
That immediately changes the calculus from originate as much as you can to originate quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they formalized this long-term view through what they called the risk scorecard analysis.
The scorecard.
This scorecard measured the adequacy of risk management, and it was mandatory for inclusion in the annual performance reviews of all senior management. And that requirement had even been expanded back in 2013 to include every single employee with credit responsibility.
Wow. So you can't get promoted or get a bonus if your risk management is deemed inadequate, even if your short-term numbers look great.
Not a chance. That specificity is what creates real cultural change.
But this hyper-focus on compliance, especially after the crisis, it must have come with a huge price tag.
Oh, a massive price tag. And that scrutiny translated directly into real, substantial operational cost.
Ugh.
A perfect example is the consent order the bank entered into with the OCC in October 2015.
What was that about?
It was specific to deficiencies in their Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering program, the BSAML compliance. Resolving that requires huge ongoing internal reviews and expense.
And we can actually see the consequence of this on the balance sheet. I remember seeing their non-interest expense jumped nearly 7% in 1 year?
It jumped 6.8% over 2015. And that 6.8% isn't just a number. It's a cultural statement. It represented significant hiring to support compliance programs and just expanding requirements.
So they're putting their money where their mouth was.
The bank had to prove through its balance sheet. The compliance wasn't an optional afterthought. It was a primary line item. It was the necessary defensive investment they needed to make.
Okay, so once you've paid that hefty cost of admission and proven you have control, the next step isn't just defense, but operationalizing it, building a stable, bulletproof architecture. Let's move to roughly 2017 to 2018.
Right, and this is where the concept of the 3 lines of defense became standard operating procedure.
The 3 lines of defense.
It's a mechanism designed to create checks and balances at every level of the organization. It ensures no one group has unilateral power over risk-taking.
Can you break down those 3 lines for us, just so we're all clear?
Certainly. So the first line is the business lines themselves, the people originating the loans, the traders. They manage risks within their predefined limits. They're on the front line.
Okay, the doers.
And the second line is the chief risk officer's organization. They are the interpreters. They translate the bank's overall risk appetite into specific policies, and they monitor compliance. They escalate emerging risks.
Got it. And the third?
Finally, the third line is internal audit. They're fully independent. Their job is to provide objective assurance to the board's audit committee that the first 2 lines are actually working as intended.
That structure alone just screams stability. And that whole philosophy filtered into their core lending strategy too, right? Especially in residential mortgages. They weren't just chasing every possible customer.
No, not at all. They were incredibly measured. Residential mortgage originations were generally limited to what they call prime borrowers.
All right.
But the strategic nuance comes in how they handled risk retention. They executed a strategy of selling a lot of those mortgage loans into the secondary market, which reduces the immediate credit risk on their balance sheet.
But they didn't completely wash their hands of the deal, did they?
Crucially, no. They retained the servicing rights and, more importantly, the customer relationships. So they offloaded the immediate credit liability, the risk of default, but they kept the valuable asset, which is that long-term customer connection and the recurring revenue from servicing the loan. It's risk mitigation combined with strategic relationship preservation.
And you can see the success of this and the quality of their portfolio during that time.
Absolutely. I mean, market activity goes up and down. Loans held for sale decreased from $3.6 billion to $2.1 billion in 2018. But despite that, the quality metrics improved dramatically.
Like what?
The residential mortgage delinquency ratio, so loans 90 days or more past due it, dropped from 0.2% to 0.18% in 2018. They proved that operational stability resulted in a higher quality loan book.
And like we discussed earlier, this philosophy was always reinforced by compensation. Executives were still rewarded based on stable return on equity targets, and they were always subject to that risk scorecard.
Yep.
It's like having a permanent governor on the engine of profitability. You can go fast, but only safely.
That alignment was foundational. They spent years making sure that the desire for reward was fundamentally tethered to long-term safety and compliance.
Okay, so that brings us into the 2019 to 2021 period. The machine of stability is built, but now the whole environment starts to change. We see the start of active modernization, and they begin dealing with totally new categories of external risk.
This period starts with a small regulatory silver lining. In November 2019, federal regulators adopted the tailoring rules.
Tailoring rules?
Yeah, they basically revised the applicability criteria for capital and liquidity requirements for larger banks. The goal was to simplify the framework a bit.
Regulatory simplification sounds like it would free up capital, but U.S. Bank didn't exactly throw caution to the wind, did they? They maintained a massive liquidity cushion. Just how massive are we talking?
They remained prepared for pretty much any scenario. By December 2020, they held $125.9 billion in unencumbered investment securities. Just think of that as dry powder. On top of that, they had access to borrow an additional $96.5 billion through facilities like the Federal Home Loan Bank and the Fed. That liquidity position is a powerful sign that even with some regulatory tailoring, the commitment to capital preparedness was absolute.
That's financial fortitude. But while regulations may have simplified in some areas, the risks certainly did not. They're entering an age where threats aren't about mortgage delinquencies, but about organized crime and state actors.
The nature of risk evolved significantly. Their disclosures explicitly detail the ongoing threats of cybersecurity breaches from organized crime, sophisticated hackers, even hostile foreign governments.
And I imagine the reliance on mobile and online banking just magnifies that.
Exponentially, the operational security risks became so much more complex, it's a daily arms race.
And the recognition that operations needed more than just maintenance, that they needed a fundamental overhaul, is symbolized by a key organizational decision in 2021.
Yes, the appointment of a Chief Transformation Officer in August 2021.
CTO.
That's a formalization of this commitment. It means they weren't just patching systems anymore. They were dedicating high-level executive focus and budget to internal process optimization and modernization. It signals a move away from just reacting to compliance and toward proactively building a more efficient, future-proof organization.
And this transition period is also where we see the groundwork being laid for the biggest strategic pivot of the whole decade. I mean, they weren't brand new to environmental and social concerns.
That's right. Before 2021, the company was already investing in tax-advantaged projects promoting affordable housing, community development, and renewable energy. So when the big public goals came later, they weren't starting from scratch. They were building on existing investment channels.
Which brings us into the final strategic segment, 2021 through 2024. This is the massive pivot. We move from internal defense and compliance to proactive, long-term, public-facing goals.
Focused on sustainability and community. It represents a complete mental shift. The goals are generational in scope.
Right. In November 2021, they announced their goal to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Wait, a net zero target for 2050? That's 30 years out? That is a fundamentally different timescale than talking about tracking early defaults within 12 months.
It forces a totally new kind of strategic planning. It absolutely does. And parallel to that net zero goal, they established a quantitative environmental finance goal of $50 billion by 2030.
$50 billion.
Using a 2020 baseline. And it's specifically dedicated to accelerating the transition to a low-carbon economy. This isn't just policy, it's investment dollars directed at systemic change.
And we can already see those dollars at work. I was looking at recent data from 2024. The company invested $3.4 billion just in renewable energy tax credit equity.
Across 36 different projects, that's expected to generate about 3.8 gigawatts of power. Those are tangible environmental outcomes.
And at the same time, they launched a massive social commitment.
The Community Benefits Plan, or CBP, in 2023. This is a staggering 5-year, $100 billion commitment aimed at improving the financial well-being of low to moderate income communities and especially communities of color.
$100 billion over 5 years, targeted at specific communities. That is not a small marketing initiative. That is a core strategic objective for the entire corporation.
It has to be.
So what are some of the tangible programs under that umbrella?
Well, one excellent example is the U.S. Bank Access Home Loan, which they launched in 2023. It's what's called a Mortgage Special Purpose Credit Program, or SPCP.
And what does that do?
It's designed to address historical disparities in homeownership. This program offers eligible borrowers up to $12,500 in down payment assistance, plus an additional lender credit of up to $5,000 for underserved communities. It directly facilitates wealth building where it's most needed.
And we even see this thinking evolving in the mass consumer product space. The launch of U.S. Bank Smartly Checking in 2023, that shows a clear strategy targeting consumer financial well-being.
Exactly. That checking account had low or zero monthly maintenance fees, and significantly, it eliminates overdraft fees for amounts under $50.
That's a big deal.
It signals a complete shift in product design toward transparency and away from relying on fees that disproportionately affect financially vulnerable customers. It connects their huge community commitment right back down to the consumer checking account level.
Looking back across this whole strategic decade, the journey is just unmistakable. The early years were all about tightening core risk and compliance.
2014 to 2016.
Right, which led to building this rock-solid operational stability and capital buffers from 2017 to 2019. And that foundation then allowed them to pivot into this final phase.
Major strategic investments focused on long-term external priorities like environmental finance and community development from 2021 onward.
It's a textbook example of a major financial institution moving from necessary post-crisis internal defense to a proactive, globally aware public strategy.
It really is. They spent a decade building the strength required to address issues that might span the next 30 years.
It's truly a powerful transformation to analyze. Thank you for guiding us through this deep dive.
My pleasure.
So here is a final provocative thought for you to chew on. Given U.S. Bank's commitment to integrating climate risk into its credit and operational frameworks, and recognizing that the physical risks of climate change can impact collateral and a customer's ability to repay, how will the increasing frequency of extreme weather events force banks to fundamentally change how they underwrite mortgages and commercial real estate in high-risk geographies over the next 5 years? That's the real-world challenge that stability and sustainability must urgently meet.
That was really cool. Now let's take it a step further and create a video overview. This feature automatically builds a presentation-style video based on the contents of your notebook. It's perfect for summarizing research or sharing insights with a team. Before we generate it, I'm going to update our research question. Instead of looking at the full 10 years, let's narrow it down and focus just on U.S. Bank's strategic priorities from the last 3 years. That will give us a tighter, more current overview. Once that's updated, we can generate the video and see what LM Notebook creates for us. Great! It took over 20 minutes, but the output looks fantastic. Let's watch a little of this.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the strategic playbook of U.S. Bancorp. Now, they're one of America's biggest banks, and believe me, they've been making some huge moves lately. So we're going to find out exactly how they plan to win the future of finance. So let's start with the big question, right? For a giant like U.S. Bank, in this age of fintech startups and customers who want everything on their phone, how do you not just keep up, but actually get ahead? Well, that's the playbook we're about to open up.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage with their modern playbook. Then, we're going to look at their big push to scale up, and follow that with their drive to innovate from the inside. We'll also cover their focus on banking with a purpose, and then we'll wrap it all up to see the strategic balancing act that holds this whole thing together.
Wow. Slides, audio narration, and even a full agenda for the entire presentation. I can't believe we got all of this automatically. This is incredibly impressive. Now let's do 2 more things with Google LM Notebook. First, we're going to create an infographic, and then we'll wrap everything up with a full slide deck. For the infographic, I want to focus specifically on U.S. Bank's financial performance for 2024. So I'm going to ask the notebook to pull out some of the core metrics you'd typically see in an earnings report. Here is my prompt. Create an infographic summarizing U.S. Bank's 2024 financial performance. Please extract the key earnings report metrics directly from the 2024 annual report, including total revenue, net income, earnings per share EPS, return on equity ROE, loan growth, deposit growth, notable year-over-year changes, any major financial highlights or milestones mentioned. Use a clear, professional infographic layout, and include citations linking back to the original document for every metric. Wow. This is amazing. The infographic actually tells a clear, comprehensive story about U.S. Bank's performance in 2024, and it took almost no effort on our part. This is such a powerful way to turn dense financial data into something instantly understandable. Now for our last task, let's create an actual slide deck that highlights the company's history, mission, and core values. This is a great way to wrap everything together into a clean, presentation-ready format. Here is the prompt I'm going to use. Create a slide deck summarizing U.S. Bank's history, mission, and values, using the documents and web links in this notebook. Include a timeline, key milestones, mission statement, and core values. Great. Now let's take a look at what it created. Wow, a full company history going all the way back to 1863, formatted into some really amazing slides. So let's wrap up what we've learned about Google LM Notebook. With just a handful of documents and a few well-crafted prompts, LM Notebook can read a decade of reports, synthesize trends, and generate insights that would normally take days or weeks to produce. We created a comprehensive strategic analysis, an audio overview in a podcast-style format, a video presentation, a financial infographic, and now a fully structured slide deck, all inside one workspace. Whether you're doing corporate research, nonprofit analysis, academic work, or strategic planning, Google LM Notebook gives you an AI-powered research environment that keeps everything organized, connected, and incredibly easy to explore. It's fast, it's smart, and it's becoming one of the most powerful research tools available to anyone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this walkthrough and want more videos like it, please subscribe to the channel. I have plenty more tutorials and AI deep dives.